A little while ago, I came across a man I had never heard of before. I came across him reading. Since he disappeared in 1929, it has never been seen since. No one knows what happened to him. His name was Sandhu Sundar Singh. He was an Indian, and he was a convert to Christianity. And once he was converted, he went around the world, literally, telling people the good news that he had experienced through his conversion to Christ. And one of the things he did was tell stories, and he told the story of a boy, the father of a rich man, who had this beautiful garden. And the boy liked to go into the garden. And he would go in there and play or sit. And then at a certain time of year, the birds came and began to eat everything in sight. And the cattle got in and began to walk on everything and crush it. And someone said to him, "Why don't you do something? Is it right for you to do nothing while your father's garden is being destroyed?" And the boy's answer was, "My father did not ask me, so it's not my work." Singh applied this to discipleship. My father did not ask me, so it is not my work. We heard the call of 3 disciples today, more than 3 actually, but 3 different episodes. Isaiah was called by God, Paul was called by God, and the early disciples were called by Christ. And the one thing all of those calls have in common is that there was no job description. And we know how important, at least if you have employees, you know how important a job description is. It makes hiring easier and firing easier. But the point is that God calls every one of us, and has called every one of us, or we wouldn't be gathered this morning as disciples, but he does not give us a job description either. We are called upon to accept the reality of our lives as it comes to us and follow the general directions which he has given us, whether you call them the 10 Commandments, or as disciples we would say, besides the 10 Commandments, there are the Beatitudes, the way we follow Christ as disciples. But a detailed application of those directions is never given to us, because those situations come to us in the moment. And by the grace of God in Christ, if we're listening, if we're watching, if we're observing, if we're reflecting, we understand what we should do or not do in the garden of God as each thing happens in our life, each event occurs. There was a story told once about a woman who had a really hard life, and she witnessed all the bad things that were happening in the world, and she railed against God. If I were God, I would have done it this way. If you're God, why didn't you do it this? Why didn't you straighten out this mess? Why didn't you straighten out this garden of paradise that has been so destroyed? And a voice came from heaven. That's your job.